Welcome to Thriller Recaps. Today, I am explaining the movie, Queen of Hearts, explaining every scene as it happens. Watch till the end, and please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this. And a lawyer working on rape cases involving young women, discussed with her husband, Peter, a doctor, bringing her clients to their house. Peter told her it wouldn't be proper for her clients to come to the house because his teenage son, Gustav, was coming to stay with them. Gustav lived in Sweden with his mother, Rebecca, from Peter's past marriage. When Peter arrived with Gustav after picking him up, and gave Gustav a hug, welcoming him home. During breakfast, the couple's twin daughters, Frida and Fanny, welcomed Gustav with gifts, which he accepted. Gustav watched how Peter was with Frida, since he didn't have much of a relationship with Peter. Peter informed him that they would be going out together to get things for his room, which Gustav reluctantly agreed to, and visited her sister, Lena, at the beauty parlor where she worked. She told her that Gustav had been kicked out of his previous school and would attend school there while staying with them, even though he was against it. Lena said she understood because he was moving away from his friends and everything he was used to, and replied that Gustav staying there wasn't permanent, as she expected him to move again like he usually did, and added that Peter wanted to build his relationship with Gustav while he was with them. When it came back home from work, she went to Gustav's room to tidy it up, thinking he wasn't at home. However, Gustav came out of the bathroom wearing a towel, having just showered. She told him she thought he wasn't home and then asked him about a book she had picked up from his things, wanting to know about it. Gustav was unable to explain what the book was about to her. She playfully gave the book back to him as she left his room. That night, Anne's client came to the house, regretting filing a case against her rapist, thinking she wouldn't be believed. Anne reassured her. The next day, Anne came home with the twins from school and heard Gustav and Peter arguing. Gustav wanted to move out, but Peter refused, saying he was still a minor. Angrily, Gustav walked out of the house. That night, Anne told Peter to try to understand Gustav more, but Peter blamed his ex, Rebecca, for being too lenient on Gustav, which he believed made him into what he was now. He thought they should send Gustav to boarding school as Rebecca had originally wanted since Gustav didn't want to stay. And defended Rebecca, saying she had been the one raising Gustav, so Peter had to step up. Anne's client was unhappy when they lost the case, feeling she wasn't believed to have been raped. Anne saw and confronted her client's rapist after losing the case when she saw him celebrating in the parking lot on her way to her car, and returned home to find that the house had been broken into. She called Peter to let him know the burglar had taken their valuables and informed him she had already reported it to the police. Just then, Gustav arrived home. She asked him to check his room to see if anything was taken because there had been a burglary. While sorting clothes during laundry, Anne found a keychain the twins had made for Gustav, which was supposed to be in her bag that had been stolen during the break-in. She found it in Gustav's trouser pocket and realized he was responsible for the robbery. She gave him the keychain and then confronted him with it, saying she had found it lying outside some time ago, but had kept it in her bag, which was stolen. Now, she had found it in his trouser pocket. Gustav tried to play it cool, pretending not to know what she was talking about. She asked him what he had done with what he had stolen, suspecting he had used it to buy drugs. She then told him to confess to his dad and the police, or she would have to do it for him. However, she offered to keep the matter a secret if Gustav joined them on their upcoming trip. Sometime later, Gustav joined the family for a barbecue with Anne's sister Lena and her son. He played with the kids as the parents watched, especially Anne, who kept a close eye on him. One night, Gustav brought a girlfriend, Amanda, to the house. He introduced her to Anne, who was busy reviewing car papers at the dining room table, before heading to his room. They made a lot of noise, making it hard for Anne to concentrate on her work. Then, she heard them having sex, which aroused her. The next day, Anne came back from work late to find her husband working. She tried to seduce him. At first, he told her he was busy, but then he gave in, and they made love. Gustav went to the stream with Anne and the twins. While he swam, the twins collected seashells, and Anne worked on her case documents. He taunted her into swimming with him, and they playfully splashed water at each other. At dusk, they all returned home after the day's fun. After putting the twins to bed, Anne and Gustav sat together, having a conversation. She told him he could bring his friends home if he wanted, but he replied that he didn't have many friends. She then asked him about his tattoo. He said he had drawn it himself, and offered to draw one for her. She declined at first, but when he promised it would be very small, she changed her mind. Gustav drew a small tattoo for her before they retired for the night. Later, Peter and Anne entertained guests on their balcony, and changed the music and started dancing. As Peter and their guests talked and laughed, they glanced at her from time to time. She tried to get Peter to dance with her, but he didn't oblige, so she fixed herself another drink. While heading out, Gustav found and sitting in the backyard, away from their guests. He asked her if everything was fine, and she replied that it was. She asked where he was going, and he said he was going to get cigarettes. Then he invited her to come along with him to the bar. She agreed, which surprised him because their guests were still at home. At the bar, they talked about Gustav's girlfriend, Amanda, and hinted that Amanda might not be the right person for him to be with, implying that she would be a better choice. Gustav then received a text message and said he needed to leave, thanking him for buying the beer. Before he left, and suddenly kissed him on the lips, leaving him dumbfounded. When they got back home, Peter scolded Anne for leaving while they had guests, telling her how disrespectful it was to him and the guests. He angrily stomped into the house, leaving her to clean the balcony. Later, while playing hide-and-seek with the twins, Gustav touched Anne on the arm while hiding from Peter. That night, with Peter at work, Anne, feeling restless, went to Gustav's room. She found him still awake and began touching him. They were intimate together, but after the act, the atmosphere in the room turned awkward. Anne gave Gustav a kiss before leaving and reflecting on what had happened once back in her own room. One day, after work, Anne stopped by a store and bought Gustav a laptop. Later, she told Peter about it. Peter said she should have informed him first so he could be there as well, and asked if she needed to get his permission to do things for Gustav. Realizing he was being ungrateful, Peter thanked her for her thoughtfulness. That night, they both went out and came back drunk, and wanted to be intimate in the hallway, but Peter disagreed, saying they would wake the kids and needed to go to their bedroom. While making love in their bedroom, Anne suddenly started slapping Peter, but it didn't stop him. The next day at the office, Anne's client Sarah told her about the abuse she had gone through from her father, who was drunk, and told Sarah that she was going to inform the police about the abuse. Sarah panicked, wanting to go home, but Anne refused to let her go and called someone else to help with Sarah. When Anne came home, she saw Gustav reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland to the twin girls. She smiled at them but left without being seen. Sometime later, Anne and Gustav were being intimate when Peter arrived home unexpectedly. She sneaked out of Gustav's room to avoid being caught. She asked Peter why he had come back so suddenly, and he explained that he had been unable to concentrate. Over time, Gustav and Anne continued their sexual relationship, even in unlikely places. Gustav interviewed Anne with a tape recorder, asking her different questions, such as about her first intimate relationship, and said it was with someone she should not have had sex with or been with, but she refused to tell him who it was. Gustav compared it with their relationship. The family celebrated Frida and Fanny's birthdays, and stepped away to get water for the water guns the twins received as birthday presents. Gustav followed her and tried to kiss her. She told him it wasn't the right place for such things, so they wouldn't get caught, but then she kissed him back. Anne's sister, Lena, saw them and walked away, upset by what she had witnessed, and went after her to the main house, where Lena was gathering her things to leave. Lena condemned Anne's behavior, citing that Gustav was still a child, and went to find her son Lucas so they could leave. Feeling uncomfortable, Anne rejoined the guests to sing birthday songs to her daughters, and put her frustration on Gustav when he tried to help her serve the guests, using the opportunity to cut off their secret relationship, which left him shocked. He started acting out, climbing on top of a tree and ignoring Peter's calls for him to come down, until he fell. Gustav told Peter he couldn't feel his leg, causing Peter to panic and call for an ambulance. Gustav then laughed, revealing it was a joke, which Peter didn't find funny. That night, Peter told Anne that Gustav didn't seem to be changing because of his earlier shenanigans, and suggested finding other alternatives, which Peter perceived as wanting to send Gustav away. He didn't support the idea of sending him away, and met up with Gustav in the woods, where she told him they couldn't continue their relationship anymore and they shouldn't tell Peter about it. She said he could continue staying with them if he liked, because the twins adored him, and came back from a run to find Gustav and Peter discussing something. Peter told her he wanted to spend 2 days with Gustav at their cabin, and didn't seem enthusiastic about it, which Peter noticed. He informed her that Lena had called and wanted to talk to her, which seemed to rattle Anne, and took the girls out to visit Lena. She told Lena she had been trying to get a hold of her, but Lena replied that she knew but didn't want to talk to her. She begged Lena not to say anything to Peter. Noticing and getting teary, Lena told her she wasn't the one who deserved pity and asked her to leave. Lena went to get the girls, who were playing with Lucas, and dropped the girls off at their horseback riding class, then headed home. She called Peter to check on them, uncomfortable with him being alone with Gustav. On her way to pick up the girls, she got into an accident while trying to take a call, driving her car into the bush. Returning home with the girls, and saw Peter and Gustav. She watched them talk from a distance, filled with dread. That night, she told Peter she wanted to go pick up some documents from the office. Peter told her that Gustav wanted to go to a boarding school, which she supported. He also told her that Gustav had confessed to what had happened between him and during their stay, and strongly denied the accusation and went to their bedroom to start packing her things, claiming Gustav hated her for ending Peter and Rebecca's marriage. Peter tried to talk her out of leaving. She told him he already believed Gustav's lies more than he believed her. He yelled that he didn't know what to believe. She also told Peter that he should ask Gustav about the burglary because he was responsible, but she had tried to protect Peter by not telling him about it. She told him she was going away for a few days, and when she came back, she wanted Gustav gone. Peter suggested they talk about it instead of getting dramatic, which led her to slap him. She accused him of thinking of her as a monster who could be intimate with his teenage son. He shook his head, indicating no, and then hugged her. And searched Gustav's room for the tape recording of Gustav interviewing her before, which could serve as his evidence, and she found it. And Peter and Gustav then sat down together to talk about the issue. Peter thought Gustav was acting out because he blamed and for his and Rebecca's marriage ending. He explained that, and wasn't to blame. Gustav insisted that and tell the truth, but she continued to deny it. In frustration, Gustav spat on her as he walked out. She told Peter that Gustav needed to leave. The twins hugged Gustav as he departed for boarding school. Later, and noticed Peter zoning out while they were together. She asked him if he needed anything, snapping him out of his thoughts. The doorbell rang, so she went to check who was there. It was Sarah, who gave her a bouquet of flowers as thanks for her help. Much later, Gustav visited Anne's office and asked her to confess the truth to Peter so he could fix his relationship with his father, but she refused. He threatened to report her for the illegal relationship, but she replied that no one would believe him because he didn't have a witness, which made him not credible. She told him to tell his father that he lied so they could work things out, or else he should stay away. And Peter got the twins a dog for Christmas. One cold night, Gustav banged on the house door, but instead of his father, and opened the door. He asked for his father, but refused, telling him that his father was done with him. He tried questioning her, but she rejected him and told him to go away, leaving him weeping on the ground. She headed back to bed. At a party for Anne's birthday, she thanked Lena for attending, though Lena didn't respond much. Later, Anne saw Peter taking a call and looking worried, so she went to him to ask what was wrong after his call. He informed her that Rebecca had been the one on the phone. She told him that Gustav hadn't been attending school and that no one had seen him since. She asked him if Gustav had been reported missing and if she should send their guests away, but he refused, saying it was her party. And came back from walking the dog to find Peter packed and heading out. He told her he had gotten a call to go to Stockholm from the police. She asked him what for, but he didn't have an idea why. Days later, he returned. Peter told them that Gustav's body had been found close to their cabin by a hunter, frozen to death. He explained that his body had been there for months before the ice thawed and he was discovered. The police believed Gustav had gotten tired and just sat down, and hugged Peter to comfort him as they both sobbed. Horrified and filled with guilt, she cried alone in the bathroom, blocking her sobs with a towel so she wouldn't be heard. As she cleaned up any trace of her breakdown in the mirror, she saw Gustav. She tried to tell Peter that Gustav's death wasn't his fault, but he violently pushed her against the wall, silencing her. The whole family dressed in black and drove in silence in their car, presumably to Gustav's funeral.